listening to Thunderheads.
We live?
A podcast for Thunder fans by Thunder fans.
Welcome to Thunderheads midweek podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube live, we're psyched to have you. I'm Brandon Soul. Over there, that's Thunder Time himself, Mr. Justin Wright.
This machine kills fascists.
Wow, I just blanked.
Woody Guthrie's?
Yeah, Woody Guthrie. Nice.
Yes.
I'm used to pointing to the left with you.
Yeah.
And it really threw me off.
You're like, well, this guy, what he said.
He's over there.
Over there. This guy in the middle, that's the dark and stormy Jason Lewis.
Yes, sir.
How you guys doing today? It's good weather.
It was nice outside, a little bit.
A little windy.
Yeah, the wind was
That wind needs to
annoying.
go.
But we can't complain, right? It's January.
And it's in the 60s.
In the 60s, so I had the door open all day long, so
Yeah,
you can't really
Nice.
complain.
you can't.
And especially after a night like last night when the Thunder dropped, kind of a bad one. Probably their worst loss in a while, considering the Wizards, no John Wall, the Wizards announced no John Wall for 6 to 8 weeks, having a knee issue, so he had surgery. Thunder, it kind of seemed like a little bit of a trap game heading in, right? It was like, well, Thunder won 8 in a row.
Right.
They just hammered the Wizards back in Oklahoma City. The Wizards are going to be ready for a little bit of a revenge game, and they know that they're going to have to play hard to win without John Wall. And the Thunder are having to... What was the stat? You brought it up earlier, Justin, about the time zone thing with the schedule.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah, they're going on like 5 straight games in different time zones. They'll get a little bit of a break coming up here, but I mean, you're putting in a bunch of travel. It's time is completely different every single night you're playing. Like it's either an hour before, hour after, 2 hours. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that has to mess with your head a little bit.
Definitely, especially considering going back to Saturday, 4 o'clock game against the Pistons.
Yeah, they're also playing at strange times, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, second day of a back-to-back, a 5 o'clock game at the 76ers. So when you kind of think about it in the grand scheme of things, you're like, well, it kind of makes sense that they came out a little flat.
Yeah, I think, you know, this is kind of that perfect culmination of you're getting back to a normal schedule, but at the same time, like, I think the team really put off that emotional kind of distress from Andre's injury. So, like, they got over it with the Sixers game, so that was coming back on them. They've been playing. So, I mean, you win 8 straight. You're going to lose at some point. I think it was just that perfect storm of this was the game that they were going to lose. Russell played terribly.
Yeah.
Carmelo played terribly. Really, the only player that, I mean, Paul George played really well. Steven Adams was, it wasn't his best game, but
He played well.
Yeah, he was at least like a bright spot, but it was just one of those where like it was just going to happen.
Yeah, it's weird. You know, probably Russ's worst game in a long time, and I think it does go into it. Normally you see Russ come out of the gates, and when he is having that slow start, he kind of gets it together at some point. He just never found a rhythm in this one.
Well, he also was really frustrated kind of the whole time, right? Like,
Yes.
he almost got 2 techs, but one of them they put on Billy.
Right, yeah.
Like, I thought that was kind of strange. Like, thank God they did, because he would have been out of the game. Was that the third quarter?
Well, yeah, I think it was the second technical that was his own.
Yeah.
He just never really got it going, and there was a certain sense of impatience to this team, and that all starts with Russ. So when he's bringing up the ball, you saw very little. It's something. It was almost like a reversion back to November, where you saw very little patience within the offense. It was always like, I know what we've been doing. It's been working. Let's just keep doing that. Where I think you got to credit a little bit Scott Brooks coming in. He knows some adjustments to make against his former point guard Russell Westbrook. He probably had an idea of his mindset coming into that game, and Russ just didn't adjust well. He almost forced the issue a little bit, I thought, just kind of trying to do too much, and he just couldn't really. I don't know. They should have relied on Paul George, and we're gonna get to it going into the end. But I thought that they could have done that.
With Russ, it felt like one of those things, and you kind of notice it, like just going back to some of those where you play like a rookie point guard or something. It seemed like with Satoransky out there, or however you say his name,
That sounds
Tomas. It was like, okay, this guy hasn't played a whole bunch. He's big for a point guard. Like, I'm just gonna just force the issue with this guy and make him look. He tries to like embarrass guys out of the NBA sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he was trying to do. And sometimes when he gets that just in that kind of attack mode, he basically undermines his own game.
Yeah.
He kind of forgets about what he was supposed to be doing the whole time. He's like, nah, I'm just going to go at this guy.
Kind of game plan out the window. He gets tunnel vision a little bit, and I think you do have to give Satoransky some credit because he did a really good job. And I don't really know much about his defensive capabilities, honestly, Satoransky's, but apparently he's a pretty decent defender because he did a pretty good job on Russ.
He's a point guard, small forward combo, which is really strange.
And that's probably just due to his size.
Yeah, he's what, like 6'9"?
I think he's 6'6".
Yeah, he's a big dude for a point guard, regardless.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It led me to wonder a little bit. The Thunder, you never really see them
It's
rest.
actually 6'7".
6'7". Okay, so he's in between.
Big old boy.
You never really see the Thunder rest guys. You know, I mean, Russ isn't the type to rest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Melo, up there in age, what is he, 33, 34 years old now? Steven Adams, with as much work as so much grind as he puts on his body day in and day out. Not that he had a bad game, because he didn't have a bad game. But I do wonder if maybe that's something that the Thunder should look to do more. Do you kind of like the fact that, you know, they were on a roll? Don't rest your guys right now. You're on a roll.
Yeah. I mean, right now, I wouldn't think that would be a thing they would try to do at the moment, especially because they were on that streak and everything was going really well. I think they want to continue to build that that team chemistry that they were getting, and you're still trying to catch up, like, because they got in a bad place early in the year. You know, I still feel like they're trying to catch in the standings. So
yeah.
Although maybe they shouldn't worry about that as much.
Yeah, it almost plays itself out. It's amazing what an 8-game winning streak does for you in the standings, right? Because it seemed like, well, the Thunder might be kind of stuck in that 5 seed. All of a sudden, they're actually ahead of Minnesota in the loss column right now. Minnesota's played a few more games, so they have a couple more wins under the belt. Therefore, their winning percentage is slightly better than the Thunder, so they're slightly ahead of the Thunder in the standings. But you know, it's the loss column that really comes down to it.
You know, the thing that kind of worries me about, you know, trying to rest guys is that, you know, you are caught up in that race, and seeding does matter when you've got the Golden State Warriors. I mean, you want to be as far away from them as possible so that you get them in the Western Conference Finals, say you go that far.
True.
So you want to be as far away. So it's hard to pick those spots where you actually can rest guys, and they just haven't been doing the right. You know, you've gotten very few times like that Lakers game where you're just blowing them out so much that no one had to play in the fourth quarter.
And I think that led me to this question too, because we haven't had games like that. Yeah. But it's kind of a tricky situation too, because you don't want your guys running out of steam in the playoffs. But at the same time, you want to keep winning games. So you have to find that balance. And would it be nice to maybe rest Carmelo on a night when you have a guy that maybe isn't... I mean, it's definitely a drop-off offensively when you talk about Patrick Patterson, but it gives him more time with the starters. It gives him more court time and just more time to get his rhythm.
I think until you can get... Right now, the way this roster is constructed, you've got your starters, and then you've got guys that are pretty good, and then you've got just kind of a big drop-off. So it's almost like you have a lack of bodies that you really want to trust, say, if you do rest Carmelo Anthony, especially with Dre going down. You've got one less guy that you can really rely on. So you're put in a really tough spot trying to give guys a little bit of a breather in the middle of an 82-game season.
And I think maybe with Melo, it's not as bad. But if you try to rest Adams, like, ugh, I guess you'd have to play Collison, which...
Yeah, that's true.
Would be fine.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's stepped on the court for like a total of 2.5 minutes all year long.
Do you expect him to actually be able to keep up and play a full game, like just out of the blue?
No. I mean, I would imagine in that situation
you would Dakari
would play. Yeah.
Well, he's not as good as he once was, but he's as good once as he ever was.
Yeah. Ooh, little Toby Keith sponsorship on the pod. Well, let's go back to the game, and the Paul George freeze out is what I'm going to call it. 3 shot attempts. So he goes 9 for 14 in the game. 8 for 14 in the game, I believe. 28 points. All of those in the first 3 quarters. On fire in the first half, as he's been. They revealed a stat, and I think he's averaging 13, 14 points in the first quarter over the last 6 games now. That's impressive. So he's getting off to hot starts. He's being aggressive right out of the gate.
Yeah, and we talked about that little last pod, I think, about how they seem to be going to him to start, and then it kind of moves towards Russell during the close. And I really like getting Paul George off to a hot start.
You just can't forget about it.
But that's, yeah, exactly.
When he has it going like he does,
and clearly no one else does. Like,
exactly. No,
why?
I mean, no one.
Yeah.
Literally no one. So you have to figure out a way to get a guy who was clearly confident throughout the game when you see him dribble up the court. Try to show Kelly Oubre up with his high stepping, just dribble.
That was cool as hell.
That was so amazing. It was just so funny that he has that confidence. It almost displayed how confident he is with this team on the court right now. And maybe that's just
like
me.
It kind of came out of nowhere to me.
Yeah, maybe that's just me looking into it too much. But he was almost shy on the court early in the year.
Don't you remember? It was. I mean, that was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was like, it looks like Paul George is super uncomfortable and bored.
Yeah.
Right now. And now it's a totally different person.
Yeah. He's looking to drive to the basket at every single opportunity.
He's hitting 2s.
He's getting that mid-range game going a little bit, isn't he? And maybe that's just a matter of the law of averages coming into play, but he's knocking them down, and that's huge for this team.
Yeah, and it's a level of comfortability. God, I can't say that
It's
word.
okay.
That I think he just needed
words.
to go through 50 games and like he's having fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think also Russ having his back and pumping him up, and then Carmelo, the guy that Carmelo is in the locker room has got to be incredible too.
Right,
So
yeah.
you've got all these really positive attitudes around you. It's something that I don't think he's really had over the last several years. Like Indiana,
a good
it seemed
point.
like it's kind of got stale.
It's true.
And so maybe just the fact that it's fun, that he's like letting himself enjoy it again.
Yeah.
That I think you're seeing that translate onto the basketball court. And obviously winning 8 games really helps.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any element of just kind of almost not cockiness, not necessarily arrogance, but just confidence of being, well, now he's an all-star.
Yeah.
Now he's playing with this other mega all-star in Russell Westbrook. He has a former all-star in Carmelo Anthony. He feels like he's on that good team. He for the first time in a long time in his career.
Yeah.
Maybe the first time ever.
It's been a while, and he was like far beyond the best player on those teams.
Right.
So
Yeah,
like having other really good people on your team probably does give you that like a little bit
of
swagger.
Right.
you know?
That little bit of swagger that Russ carries with himself that Melo kind of just, it's almost just like stigmatized in Carmelo Anthony, and then and then Russell Westbrook is who he is. But back to the PG freeze out. 3 shots in the second half. I don't
Was
know if
none in the fourth, right?
none in the fourth quarter.
He didn't record a stat in the fourth quarter.
Nothing.
No field goals attempted, no points, no steals, no rebounds, no assists, nothing.
He started. How many minutes did he play in the fourth quarter? Do you?
5 minutes and 52 seconds.
I'm pretty sure he started on the court in the fourth quarter at the very beginning, and then he came out. It's just, is this on Russ, Billy, both, the whole team? I mean, where's this lie? Because this can't happen again. And here was Russ's quote after the game. Russ said, quote, "That's my bad. I take ownership in that and take ownership in our loss tonight. I got to do a better job of making the game easy for Paul and finding him and getting him a basket." Now, most of that quote, I love that he said that because I think that he needed to say that.
Absolutely.
As poor of a game as he played, it's important for him to acknowledge it and say, "This one's on me."
I totally agree. I mean, when you're saying who's this on, and he just kind of takes it on himself, I think that shows huge amounts of leadership. And I mean, I think if you're Paul George and you see that, like, you appreciate it for sure. If you're like, damn, I really wish I could have got anything going in the fourth. And
I guess that's another thing with him though. Like, is he the type to come forward and say, "Give me the ball"? Like, give me the ball.
I don't think so.
No,
and
especially not when a guy like Russell Westbrook's on his team.
Right. And it seems like we talked about, it seems like they kind of had started that dynamic where he, like, Russ is kind of like, fourth quarter is my time to do stuff. But if he's not going, then, like, you need to figure out a way to get someone else. And I, like, the last 2 shots, like, you tried to get Melo those shots, but they hit the same exact spot on the rim both times.
Right.
Which was a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, Melo was 2 for 12 from 3. Melo took 12 threes, which I'm okay with. And he had a decent amount of good looks, and he only made 2 of them.
Yeah.
You can almost tell when Melo's going to make his shot or not when he catches the ball, It's like when he's super engaged, you see him really bend his knees, he's real focused, and sometimes he's just kind of going through the motions.
It's that same thing with that Russ 15-footer. Where it's just like there's a little gleam in his eye, like, oh, yeah, that's going in.
Right.
So going back to, who's to blame, like, obviously Billy Donovan has to do a better job of getting him on the floor. And maybe by design he wasn't out there. Maybe that was, going back to your rest point, maybe that was just like, let's hold PG back a little bit. He's been
try to get Russ going because he was playing so
exactly.
Yeah.
And then Russ is kind of trying to force it with Carmelo. Carmelo had a bad game. Like, Carmelo's going to eventually hit shots, so keep feeding him. And then going back to the team aspect, I feel like even Paul George, when he was out there, maybe wasn't as aggressive off the ball as he was early in the game. Whereas, especially down the stretch, Melo was working his ass off to get to his spots, to let Russ know that, hey, I'm open, I can make this shot.
Right.
And he got the opportunities. He didn't capitalize on them, but he at least got the opportunities. So I guess it's kind of a mix, and Russ has to take it as the leader as well.
That's true, and I mean, it's a lot of that. Otto Porter was guarding Paul George, and so you have a very capable defender at the very least in Otto Porter, but that's where you got to go set some screens for him. You got to figure out as a team how to get this guy going. But when you look at the box score, especially the shot distribution, it just screams November 4th, or whatever date, pick a date back then. You have 21 shots for Carmelo Anthony, who led the team, 18 for Russell Westbrook, and 14 for Paul George. I mean, that is just...
Right, like it seems like they switched back.
Right.
And Melo kind of fell out of the role that he started finding. And so I think that's a thing they have to work on, probably a nightly basis, on, like, this is the way we're playing now, and like everybody has to fill the thing we decided.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? And so there's probably going to be games here and there where they forget about it.
Yeah, I mean, where it's almost, I don't want to say they revert back to bad habits, but it just might be a lack of focus,
Yeah.
or like we talked about with the schedule coming in. Like, they're not going to play. It's not fair to, when this team has been playing as well as they have, second best record in the entire NBA since December 1st, to when they lose this one bad game on the road to just, freak out about it. Because I don't think this game is who they are anymore.
I think this game just, all in all, even for the Wizards, it was just a weird game. I mean, both teams.
Yeah, neither one were good.
Yeah, neither.
Look at the shooting
neither of the teams
percentages,
could shoot.
37.5 and
They should
38.2.
have called it a draw, and neither gets a win.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
The rare basketball draw.
Yeah.
And it's gotten to the point where it's weird, especially as a Thunder fan, to look down and like 96.
Mm-hmm.
Did they just cut out half the fourth quarter? Like, what happened?
Right.
Like, who scores fewer than 100 points now?
Yeah, no joke. And then when you're right, it was a weird game. You look at the free throws: 29 for Washington, 34 for the Thunder, who got to the line basically like 30 times, I think, before the fourth quarter. Only 2 of those, Russell Westbrook. Only 2 free throws.
Crazy.
And that was one thing that AD after the game was kind of complaining about. How does MVP only go to the line 2 times? But I almost have to disagree with him on this one, because I just didn't see that many opportunities for Russ to go to the line. I think that he just wasn't himself. He was forcing the issue, looking a little out of control. He wasn't being very crafty, wasn't being very smart with his play. And so you can't just bail the MVP out just because he's the MVP.
Right.
I mean, but you look at Washington, and 27 to 29 from the line, 93%. There you go. There's the win. Or you look at the Thunder, 20 turnovers.
Right.
You can't shoot 37.5% and have 20
And
turnovers
shoot
and win the game.
79% from the line.
That's just not.
Those 3 things are a
Yeah.
loss.
Which 79% from the line for this team is,
Yeah.
whew, what a game.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
on fire.
They hit everything.
Yeah, oh my
Oh my
goodness.
God, they're so good at it.
Another story from this game, Josh Eustace. So last game, before the Washington game, the only game since Robertson's been out, Grant was the closer with the starting 5 instead of Ferguson, obviously, who starts the game. This game, it was Josh Eustace. But let's start before the closing, because he actually had a great game. He was everywhere defensively. It's not going to show up on the stat sheet, but he had a couple really nice steals. He blocked Bradley Beal at the rim. It was just a really nice block.
Sweet block.
I mean, he was just playing some good ball. He hit a corner 3, and then he earned the closing job.
Which
and
he hadn't.
crash and burn. Which, some of this might be on Russ for passing him the ball in the first place and him driving, because Russ didn't get himself in a good position, and Eustace was the only guy to dump the ball to, and Eustace freaked out. Should have swung it to the corner for Paul George. Eustace drove the lane and then turned it over. Then Eustace got another offensive rebound later, I think, with a chance to tie, was it? And I don't think the ball ever got above the rim.
No, it hit the underside.
Oh, no.
And it was pretty rough.
It literally looked like a
had
person
that been Grant,
Right.
just smashed it in. You just smash it in. Or he would have at least
It's
made it.
crazy to
I
see
hope.
an NBA player just so nervous, and he was
Yeah.
clearly nervous.
Definitely looked like something I would do on a court.
It did.
I was like, oh, that's such a me.
But do you think that defense throughout the entire game was what earned him that closing spot, or was it a matter of Billy Donovan said before this game, I'm going to close with Eustace this game as just an experiment. While we don't have Robertson, I'm going to rotate through these guys and kind of just see my options here, see what I'm working with.
How about both? How about it was just like, he saw the defense throughout the game, was like, well, I felt a little weird about it beforehand, but now I know. And he plays all 12 minutes in the fourth quarter. Like, Billy's going to have to go back to trying stuff out again. And so,
Yeah, we talked about that last pod.
We did.
I think that's just a combination of he was playing really well and
He kind of earned the closing minutes of the game.
It was time to throw him in.
Is that the right move? Because Jeremy Grant in that first half played a key role for this
He
team.
did.
He had 8 points and 5 rebounds, I think, in the first half and a block, and in the second half, all he had was a rebound, and he didn't really play very much. And after playing so well in the first half, so maybe it was just kind of Billy Donovan before the game saying, I'm gonna, and maybe like you said throughout, maybe it was a little of both. He just said, I'm gonna throw Eustace out here. So who's next? Who's next? Is Is he gonna keep playing with this in the closing lineups? He's toyed with Abrinas a little bit here. Abrinas
Yeah.
has got a little run. Abrinas looks terrible.
He only got 2 fouls last night, though. Yeah.
You know what's weird
Moving
about
on
it?
up.
Baby steps.
He looks so uncomfortable right now.
Yeah. There were moments when I was watching him play defense, and he's just like,
He looks frightened.
God, I hope I'm in the right place. And he totally wasn't. And his guy's just like running around. I'm like, what? Follow him.
He looks like it's like his first day. Like he just got a job at the Cheesecake Factory as a waiter, and it's his first day.
Trying to remember
and it's
that
a
thick
Friday
ass,
night.
Trying to remember that thick ass menu.
Yeah, and he's
Definitely
running
can't.
around like he's freaking out. Like I don't even know what I'm doing. Like that's what he looks like on the court.
That's very accurate.
What's going on here? I mean,
He looked fine last year. I don't know what.
it's so strange. Do you think he hears this outside noise? And maybe it's creeping in?
There's got to be something because, yeah, like last year, even on defense, I mentioned this kind of down the stretch. Was like, if he just puts on a little bit of weight, like he's got the footwork, he's typically in the right spot. So, like, it can only get better, and it got a lot worse somehow. Like,
Well, that's why we
went
were all
to play-
so excited. Is because he was out there flipping tires and getting beefed up, and then all of a sudden, he forgot how to play basketball.
He goes and
in
plays
that.
in the Euros, and then comes back, and it's like, you're just playing European basketball now. Like, you have to get back to the NBA mentality, and it just never clicked for him.
He did have a steal, but it almost felt like a lucky steal to
Oh,
me.
and when he was driving back down, I was so worried.
You mean
But
on the like
when he
after
got-
the steal on the fast
Yeah,
break?
yeah. I was very concerned. I
he-
was like, he's about to turn this
He
shit right
freaked
back
out.
over.
He had Paul George running next to him. He was like, I have to give him the ball.
Yeah, I
He-
don't know how
he
to
did
get it there, but I'm gonna have to.
Hey, in his
It
credit, I
finished.
guess he did get it there. He played 13 minutes. Terrence Ferguson starts the game, plays 19 minutes. Didn't really make an impact on this game, which is going to happen. I mean, he's a rookie, so we've yet to see him close the game. Did he close the game at Detroit? I want to say he did.
Thought so.
I think, I'm pretty sure he did.
I think, and then another option for closing the game, I think here going forward until and if the Thunder make a move is going to be Raymond Felton. I think he's the guy that, honestly, if Billy Donovan wants to win, he's the guy he's going to play.
Yeah.
And even Raymond, he had a bad game,
Yep,
too.
Raymond was so bad.
And that's just it. Like I said, it was one of those perfect things. Like, just everything went wrong.
It's the bench. It happens with the bench. It's going to be hard to come out there and do your best work every single night in 15 minutes. It's just going to be hard.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite option of all these guys? Grant, Abrinas, Ferguson, Patterson, Felton to close with this line? Because Patterson's another guy you could do if the matchups were right to try to slide Melo up there.
Yeah. With Patterson, I think it's more matchup wise. I'd be a little concerned just doing it all the time. But I think Grant right now, if he's playing the way he was last night in the first half, the player that he can be in those situations is so good. But then there's that whole week or two that he was just like disappeared for a while. So if he's playing well, I think Grant's perfect.
That's interesting because I was going to bring this up anyways, and you kind of led me right into it. Can the Thunder afford to trade him right now?
It depends on the piece they get back, but I'm scared of it.
He's such a versatile player, and in today's NBA, that's key.
Yeah.
And you lost Robertson, another very versatile player, at least defensively. Mm-hmm. Houston isn't quite as versatile, frankly, because he's not quite as good as Grant.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder if you can afford to trade him. So what are your thoughts on that? Should they look to trade others and maybe last resort if it's a guy you have to bring in, maybe trade him at that point? Or
I mean, I definitely would lean towards that. Like if you could at all avoid it.
I guess
what
that's
do
a
you think,
no-brainer a little
Justin?
bit.
Like
If it's a home run, yeah. But
Right.
at this point, like you said, losing Dre, just the way that Jeremy Grant has really kind of excelled and gotten a lot better this year, I think you kind of have to hold on to him and then just take your chances in the offseason.
Yeah.
Especially with an offseason where money is going to be weird.
Right.
There's a lot of bad things coming like on the horizon with Paul George and all that. So, maybe just take your chances with him and look to move. I mean, you've got to look to move Alex Abrinas. Houston is probably on the table. You'd love to get rid of Singler if you can. So at this point,
that's a negative in our trade
Yeah.
package. It's like, also, could you take Singler?
Well, you know what looks horrible right now is that you have two contracts in Singler and Abrinas on the books that they right now look like horrible contracts. So you have a little over $10 million wrapped up in those guys. That's not
so ugly.
That does
and
not
people
look
that
good
you
for
can't
Sam
even
Presti.
play.
Yeah, that's not good. So I want to ask you guys, what's the bigger risk for Jeremy Grant? Not trading him, knowing you're probably going to lose him in the offseason, or trading him and banking on the guy or guys coming in? Which is the bigger risk here? And I know this is very broad because it's not very specific. We don't know who
that person would
said
be,
guys
right,
would
yeah.
be, but obviously you have a sense of an idea of the quality of a guy someone like Jeremy Grant might be able to be swapped for.
I'm gonna say your bigger risk is trading him and hoping the guys that you bring in, especially we saw how long it took, integrating Paul George and Carmelo Anthony into this roster, and so and obviously it worked out really well with Taj Gibson last year, so you can use that as a positive. But
That's true.
At the same time, like there are some guys that just might not click immediately, it might not click ever. So you're looking at trading a guy that you know what you're gonna get out of him, that it's gonna work out, to get guys that. It's kind of a crapshoot. So yeah, I'd say holding on to him is definitely the safer option, and trying to trade and hoping that whoever you get back is really going to be great and fit immediately. That's your bigger risk.
I don't think I'd trade Grant unless you're getting
Yeah.
it's in a package where you're getting back
LeBron.
a guy who can
A proven.
a guy who can start at the 2.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. It's like if you don't get somebody that's proven that is going to be able to take that role on, like if you're just getting a bench guy, like you just said, like that's not safe at all.
Yeah.
That's very worrisome. Or even if you trade for somebody like Tyreek, that I know has been brought up, like he's very injury prone. Like you at least have confidence.
So injury prone that Memphis knows they're going to trade him, and Woj just reported right before we went live that Memphis, since they know they're going to trade him, isn't going to play him. They're going to sit him until he's traded because they know that he's going to get hurt.
DNP asset.
Yeah. Right, well, yeah. DNP ass.
Kind of the thing with Terrence Ferguson, being in that starting lineup and exploring trades, getting someone that can actually start is you kind of going back to Sabonis last year. Is eventually that rookie hits a wall or something goes on where you just don't feel that comfortable playing them as a starter. You could bring him in and if when Domas came in, he looks so much better just as being a bench player. Like I'm sitting here learning, not having to like go out and do.
Yeah, right.
I think that's kind of the where Terrence Ferguson needs to be.
Yeah.
And obviously he's been put in a situation where it's going to be hard for him to succeed. I hope he does, but like it's not a good role for him right now.
I mean, the kid's 19 years old, and he came from the Australian Professional League. Like, that is so far below. I mean, I know he's playing with grown men, but it's not the skill.
Yeah.
Obviously, he has the athleticism to keep up with these guys.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
His rookie wall might be different than Sabonis's just because Sabonis, came into the year starting, playing 25 minutes a night, where Ferguson isn't doing that.
Right.
Yeah, and he hasn't played a ton this year. Like,
But
I
I
mean,
would
he's been
imagine
playing spot minutes and like every once in a while, hey, you're starting, and now it's kind of like, ugh.
I would imagine that wall does exist at some point, though, and that Presti knows that too. Presti, there's no way you can go into the playoffs with a team that has Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, Steven Adams on it, and start a rookie, a 19-year-old rookie that was picked 21st in the draft. You just can't do it. You just can't do it.
They might.
You're right. They might. They might.
They
But
might
can't.
though, but they can't.
I don't know. I wonder in that situation if you still had Grant, if you would in a playoff situation, if you would insert him.
It'd make me feel more comfortable.
A more versatile guy, a more trustworthy guy, at least on both
But
ends.
then, which I guess you just shrink your rotations a lot. So,
I mean, you could still play Ferguson a little bit, but you're going out there for a couple minutes just
Yeah.
to give these guys a breather,
So at that point, you're talking about moving Carmelo to the 3.
No. I think Grant would be the 3 in that situation. I mean, but it's interchangeable. It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter
Yeah.
in that situation.
I'm worried.
Grant
about,
would guard the 3 though.
Yeah, see, that's okay.
That would have
'cause
to happen.
The scary thing is, people keep talking about like, oh, well, you can just move Carmelo to the 3 to work out.
Right.
Like, yeah, but if defensively you're putting Carmelo on a 3, you're just asking that
You're-
guy to blow by
you're
Carmelo every
fucking
single time he
doomed.
touches
Right.
the ball.
Right. And other things too. You know who plays the 3? Kevin Durant.
No.
You know who plays the 3? Trevor Ariza.
Right.
So these are guys that you're trying to beat, and I don't feel comfortable with Carmelo having to pay attention to any of those guys. But granted, Ryan Anderson plays the 4, and that's who. Hey, I mean, I'm more scared of Trevor Ariza than I am Ryan Anderson.
Yeah.
And same with Draymond. Like, he's not exactly the quickest guy out there, and if Melo can out physical him, then that's a good matchup.
True. And Melo got the best of him last matchup.
Did.
Which Thunder have Golden State coming up here in a few days.
Yeah, Golden State sandwich on Lakers bread.
Speaking,
I liked that.
Yeah, speaking of Melo, is it a problem that he's becoming almost an afterthought on this team offensively? I know that he led the team in shots last night, but you know what I mean, where he doesn't, teams aren't, I guess I can't say this with any sort of certainty, but I wouldn't think teams are really revolving their game plans around Carmelo.
I actually like it. I think that's the exact thing that needs to happen.
Do you think that's what Presti and Donovan expected when he was coming in, though?
I think so.
You think so?
Because, you have Russ, who's an insane person, and then PG, I think that's the way it needs to be, is that hierarchy right there, where it's like, Russ, you go and be you. PG is going to get his shots. Try to focus on him, especially early. And then Melo is going to have off games and everything like that, but he's kind of there as that third option, and it's a scary third option.
Yeah.
When he's hitting shots, we're so good.
Yep.
It's
so
incredible.
Good. It's really hard to beat the Thunder when Melo's making shots, and you saw it in that Golden State game when he was so good. And that's where you're like, oh. And when this team, we talked about it last pod, we've actually talked about it the last couple of pods, the firepower that this team is showing here and there that we weren't seeing early in the year. That's because of those three guys. And then Steven Adams, who also deserves credit. Speaking of Steven Adams, check this out. His last 9 games, 15.6 points a game, 11.1 rebounds a game. So he's averaging a double-double in his last 9. 6.9 of those 11 rebounds a game are offensive rebounds. So he's averaging about 7 offensive rebounds a game over the last 9. 1.3 assists, 1.2 steals, 1 block, 66% from the field, 7 double-doubles in his last 9 games. Dude's balling. But here we go.
Uh-oh.
He's shooting 35% from the line.
It's been really bad.
That's been so weird, right? It seems like he was playing so confidently early in the season. He was making a bunch of free throws, and now it's just like, where'd it go?
Wasn't there some point last year he was shooting 78% from the line or something like that?
He started at 90 for the first 10 games or something. You know what I'm noticing? And I was wondering if you guys had any theories as to why his free throw percentage is plummeting right now. Is he getting worn out? Is when he goes to the line, is he so
just tired?
Yeah,
his
so
arms
tired.
are dead.
But or is it his legs? Yeah, which should be what that makes the most sense. You're shooting is your legs, but his elbow kind of looks a little more out to me when he's shooting his free throws. And I don't know if I'm just making this up because
he's missing. Need that Darko fella to go out and punch him?
Yes,
that's what he needs.
You know what he needs to do instead of, because he doesn't really shoot two-handed very often, except on free throws.
That's do his flip.
He needs to do, just the little that little floater that he has.
I agree,
and just do that from the free
throw line. That would be awesome looking too.
His hands are big enough to palm the hell out of the ball anyway, so just do that.
Just dribble it, so you basically simulate a pass to coming. Himself. Yeah, so catch it and then just flip it. Boom. I mean, it would work. I feel like he would shoot at least 65%.
That would be pretty sweet.
Why not?
I want them to change the free throw rules in the NBA where you can have one designated player pass you the ball. If you're like a spot up guy, like Rush just kind of sits on baseline right by the ref, just hits him with a pass and it's just buckets every time.
I like it. I think I'm
for this. 100% for this.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the report that came out today that Royce Young said that the Clippers offered Blake Griffin for Paul George, and of course the Thunder turned it down because Blake ends up in Detroit. Is this the right move, turning it down? Paul George in the last year of his contract. You for this?
Yes, 100%. I'm really glad we dodged that bullet.
Just keep going with the risk.
Yes. Well, because I almost think Blake's a bigger risk.
Yeah.
In a way.
I mean, he's locked up for 4 to 5 more years. 5 more?
I'm pretty sure he got the max, and he gets hurt every year. He only plays 14 games?
He gets hurt a lot.
Yeah, he does. I mean, as cool as it would be, obviously, being an OU grad, having Blake come back, and I watched him play in high school. It'd be a great story to have the hometown kid come back and be one of the heroes, but it's just
not at the expense
of it's not a good fit for just money-wise, the fact that he's always hurt. And, I'd much rather have Paul George. I think Paul George is much more dynamic with Russell Westbrook. And you've already got Steven Adams running the pick and roll, so I feel like it becomes a really awkward fit with Blake
Griffin.
Griffin.
Almost, yeah.
Although I was kind of thinking, because Blake's kind of stretched his game out a little, and he's pretty good at it. And he's got, I think him and Adams together would be kind of, it'd
be fun.
Him and DJ worked really well. So.
Sure. It would be fun. I mean, it'd be interesting maybe down the road. But in this situation now, it wouldn't have made sense. If you trade now, then you have both Melo and Blake Griffin.
That's so weird.
And
Yeah.
Steven Adams, you're going to have a very clogged front line and a bunch of slow.
Yeah, no one can keep up with any other team.
Yeah, and I think if you're in on Paul George now, I think Presti, you got to be a little encouraged. I know you don't want to get too high on yourself, but the things that you've heard from him,
Right.
the positive things that are coming out, that's only good. So you got to just
And everything that's happening with his team, wow, it seems like, oh, these guys are really clicking now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's
see this one out.
So one thing with the Paul George situation, obviously, what's the big comparison that we have is Kevin Durant. When we were going through this with Kevin Durant, the way I remember it is like he wasn't really talking about it as much. It was just kind of like because he always used to say the right things, and then as it kind of loomed closer and closer, he just stopped talking about it and would just like, I'm just focused on basketball, like would kind of deflect the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I feel like Paul George is much more candid with it, and he's like talking about his experience, how he feels about things, and like that almost gives me a better feeling than when Kevin Durant left. Almost like he's gonna stay and we're gonna be the greatest team ever.
I wonder how much of that is. How much of that you can actually credit the Thunder's organization for? Because maybe it kind of seems like back in the day, the Thunder were a little more overseeing of their players and saying, don't say this, say this.
Right.
It seems like now they're backing away from that because that is something that Kevin Durant has been vocal about. That kind of turned him off in the end. I think he didn't feel like he could be himself or whatever.
Yeah.
And who knows how much truth that there is to that. But if there is a little bit of truth to that, it would make sense for the Thunder to pull back a little bit, kind of let these guys speak their mind, especially when you got a vet like Carmelo coming in. You're not going to stop him. I mean, you got to let him talk.
I think that's a big part of it. I mean, I think they started doing that when Paul got here. How they had that big ceremony and everything. It was like, well, that's different. Like, this is not the usual Thunder way. And I think with him, they kind of, you already know, like, he's going to say whatever he wants. He's only here for, we're not going to try to limit what he can say and stuff like that. So, and especially with Carmelo, like, that dude's just going to say anything he wants.
And Russ, too.
Yeah.
You're not censoring Russ at this point.
Yeah, like why would you try?
He's going to do what he wants.
It took the franchise 10 years to finally just grow up and not feel like, oh, we're just this new team. Like we're just going to let us being a new team in Oklahoma City. That's our image. It's like now they've taken a step back and like, okay, we have to think about things differently. We have to have personality as a franchise. We have to let our players, create this brand for us, and then we just run with it. I think they've done a really good job. I think Kevin Durant leaving, definitely changed things, but that they've done such a great job of realizing that we have to grow up as a franchise as well.
Right. Well, and I mean that kind of goes with. I mean, Russ is now fully an adult person instead of when he was here before, Kevin Durant and Russ were both like small, like they're basically kids.
Right.
And so the franchise kind of treated them that way and like had to shelter them, I feel like, a little. So now I think as KD left and
it's important to grow.
So
I mean, it's important to grow not only for individuals, but as, the organization that you are. So I think they're doing a good job at that. Like you said, Justin, I think even when you look at the uniforms, they never do something as flashy as the statement jerseys are.
Never happened.
All right, I want to get a prediction from you guys here before we get to our questions. Does someone get traded before our next podcast on Monday? Our next actual podcast, because we got a couple things before that. But
I'm going to say no. I think this is more of a deadline day situation for Presti. He usually does stuff around the day, I feel like.
It's so weird because the schedule gets really clogged, as the closer you get to that deadline. So I'm gonna go with yes. I think he's gonna take this opportunity where you've got Golden State coming up. You want to make something happen as soon as possible. Get whoever you're bringing in with the team. Get them as acclimated as possible before you're playing what is a huge marquee matchup, and it still has all the drama that it always did.
Yeah, I don't know what to think on this one. I don't know. That's all I'm at. I don't know. Is it going to be acceptable if both Singler and Abrinas' contracts are still on the books after the trade deadline?
No.
Well,
you got to move one of those.
Is that a case where you're like, Presti, you made this mistake, fix it?
Yeah.
I know you've done a bunch.
Pull some wizardry, bro.
Right.
Get those guys out of here.
We missed the buyout window on him, didn't we? Or is that still? Can we still buy out his contract?
Singler?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're talking about going to get some player in the buyout market, why not just add to the market?
That's true. I guess that's an option. The problem is that he has Next year is fully guaranteed, and the year after that is not fully guaranteed. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that exactly. They would have to reach terms of an agreement there. I mean, which technically you'd be like, hey, why do you deserve that last non-guaranteed money? Why? What have you done for us besides just go to the float spa all of your life?
If you had a better haircut, we might think about it.
Yeah.
I believe he also sells beer at the stadium sometimes. Up in my friend Michael's section, there's a guy that looks exactly like Singler
Oh, no.
that always sells beer. And during the Martin Luther King halftime video tribute, this is pretty amazing.
Right.
There was just this really emotional video,
Uh-huh.
It's really nice. And then all of a sudden, right in the middle of it, go beer, yeah.
Oh, God.
I was like, dude,
just ruined it.
Not the time.
Let's go, boom, not here.
I was like,
Just really got a lack of awareness
yeah,
all
just
around.
totally didn't get it.
Yeah, just everywhere.
Could have been more of a whisper.
Let's do some Twitter questions. What do you say?
Let's do that.
You guys got them up?
Do you got them up?
No, I don't.
Oh, I got them up.
Okay, cool.
All right. Michael Cage headphone skin at the Brody 2020. Can I donate my patella to Robes?
I guess, but it's not his patella.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to do a whole
Yeah.
lot.
He
He's
doesn't
gonna have
need that
three
part.
patellas now. He ruptured his patella tendon, so you're gonna need to give him that.
Patellar.
instead.
Patellar.
Patellar tendon.
I meant to
Science
say
stuff.
something about
I have a
that.
speech impediment with my R's.
No, you're fine.
I say aw.
By the way, I've got it up now. So.
Cool. Go take it away. I'm gonna.
From Ben Burke at Ben_Burke10. How does Brothers still have a job?
Oh,
That's a
solid question.
that's a great question.
we
I
should take that to the league
I've
office.
said for a couple of years I think he's the worst referee.
He's
in
so
the,
bad.
But I think he's been around for so long. It's one of those things like you just
can't fire a guy like-
He looks, and I've said this on Twitter before. I think that he looks so much like if Neil deGrasse Tyson just lost himself to alcohol.
Totally. Also, it looks like he has major cataracts in his eyes. I don't know how he sees. I don't think he does.
He doesn't.
You're right. Clearly, the evidence says that he doesn't.
He's just intimidating people with his eyebrows.
I've
That's
got
what
a
it is.
YouTube live question from Brandy Gucci. I don't know how to say that name.
Gucci, man.
That
yeah,
sounds
something.
right.
Do you think BD ever starts Hustis over Ferg?
No.
No.
I don't either.
I don't think it's the right fit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't think Hustis is that good yet, which
Agreed.
is good for Ferg.
Next.
From Thundermob 405.
Oh, who's
Hey,
that?
I've heard of that guy
I know,
before.
right? I read that and I was like, wait, hold on. Do I know that person? Do you pour your cereal first, then milk, or vice versa?
Cereal first, yeah, for sure.
Not a
It's always
freak.
cereal first,
Do- Does anyone not?
There are people that are anarchists like that.
I'm more like I just. So
How does your milk not just explode everywhere?
Well, how hard of a pour? Of the
Real
syrup?
hardly.
Oh, dump it in there.
Yeah, I'm really just
No, I think
go for it. You know?
I always put the cereal in, and then I do a real light. Like I don't like a lot of milk in my cereal, but I like the milk to touch every piece. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. It's funny, but I do know what you're
Okay.
saying.
I don't really eat cereal that
Little-
often. You are like a professional cereal eater.
I love me some cereal.
That is a weird profession to have.
That would be.
From Quark Matthews at Quark Matthews, has there ever been a bigger crunch time audition fail than Houston against Washington?
Houston against Washington. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I don't know that there has. That was so bad.
All right, moving on from our boy T at Drinking Tea. Isn't it annoying to see Russ get in a hissy fit when we're down when he's the reason we're playing so bad?
I get what he's saying. I mean, yeah, he can be a baby. He really can be a baby, and I think it can affect teammates.
That's like the one thing about Russ that frustrates me still. Like the rest, I love everything about him, even when he has bad games. I love that he's always aggressive. But it's just when he's kind of whiny, I'm like, dude, just stop.
Yeah.
Don't complain about everything.
Right.
He thought he got fouled and just sat there on the floor like, nah, dude, get up.
And
and
just
play.
grab his face while he runs around.
From Thunder Up at My Name is Devin. Did Abrinas get minutes to increase trade stock?
I don't know how much
Don't
increasing
think it worked
did.
that well, but
I do think that maybe it's possible to consider that maybe Presti and Donovan are throwing him out there to just say, hey, look, he plays.
he is a guy
He
that can play
plays.
on the floor.
Yeah.
Sort of. I've got a YouTube one from Aaron Yount. So do you trade Grant if Courtney Lee is an option? That was kind of back to our conversation earlier where we were
Yeah,
talking
I
about
think
it.
that's a type of situation you would, but you got to remember that Courtney Lee's making about $13 million this year.
So you got to make that money work.
Yeah,
With-
and Grant is only around 1.7, I think. I
so
want to say.
even adding Singler and
Yeah, Singler, and it'd
Abrinas
have to be.
still doesn't work.
I think that might work. because you have those
Oh,
you
yeah,
have
you
trade
got the
exceptions.
exception. I
So
forgot
I
about
think
that.
you
Okay.
could make that work.
Grant's at 1.5.
Which I'm totally cool with that trade.
So Grant at 1.5, you got Abrinas at about 5.7, and then you got Singler at about 4.6. And you have about a 2.5 exception.
Might be able to slide it in there.
From Johnny at Triple Double VGC, rank the Thunder locker room dynamic in the NBA in terms of positive atmosphere, support, leadership, and camaraderie.
That was a
It's
lot
hard
of things.
it's hard to say, not being in there, but I guess you get a pretty good idea from the outside. I mean, Thunder are going to be up there. They're going to be top 5, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I would say, you look at probably, I hate to say it, but Golden State's up there.
For sure.
Absolutely.
The Thunder are definitely up there.
San
Spurs.
Antonio.
San Antonio. Just because
Boston.
of pop.
Boston, yeah.
And then you look at some of the worst, like Cleveland's
Yeah.
trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
I'm
Sacramento is
I was about to say the
typically
Kansas
in the
City.
best.
disaster.
Bulls have been pretty bad here lately.
Yeah, they got in a fist fight with each other. Probably the Magic's not great.
Probably not.
Because,
I'm sure things are a little restless
Utah's
in the
good.
Bucks.
Utah's
yeah, the Bucks probably is a little,
But yeah,
Shattered.
Thunder are definitely up there.
yeah.
From Evan McDeasy at Evan ETM, what do you think of the trades that have Beasley and Lee in them? Would Beasley be a good fit for our bench?
I say no.
I would like to keep him out of this locker room because he's a disaster.
I mean, you want to talk about inconsistency.
Yeah.
And a guy that needs the ball to be inconsistent. You know, like I don't think it's a good fit.
He's like a shitty Mellow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
From Corey at Whitehawk918, do you guys think Jeremy Grant should start over Terrence Ferguson? We kind of covered that a little bit earlier.
No, I don't think so, because I kind of maybe in the playoffs if you feel like you really need it and this team doesn't acquire someone that is more capable. But right now, I think you need that versatility off the bench. Right now, without Andre Robertson, I think when you look at Grant's numbers and he played 17 minutes last night, he's got to play more.
Yeah.
He's got to play more.
Especially, it kind of confuses me when he was playing so well that he didn't get more minutes in the second half.
Hit the buzzer beater at halftime. That was nice.
It was nice. Looked like a real basketball player. He dribbled and shot off of it.
I know. I was like,
The
whoa,
fuck?
what is that?
From Hunter Harjo at Hunter Harjo7, do you think Joe Harris is the perfect pickup for the Thunder?
I want to say that this came because he lit the Thunder up last week.
I keep seeing his name pop up all over the place. I'm like, it's just because he was good that one game.
I think that maybe he'd be
But
an
maybe
okay
he's
fit.
okay.
Like he could contribute, but perfect fit's probably going a little far. I don't think that Joe Harris would come in and you just expect him to be like, oh yeah, here we go.
Now we're winning
Now we're
that
good.
championship.
Yeah, not happening.
From Zach Weber at ZAvalanche33, what is your favorite retro NBA jersey of all time? His are the purple Raptors jerseys from the Vince Carter era.
It's a good choice.
Those are awesome.
He kind of took that 33 out of his name. Weird.
You got one?
Say it again.
I know mine.
Favorite NBA retro jersey. Favorite.
I don't.
Mine. Well,
Just
mine's easy, and it will never change. It's the Orlando
I
Magic
knew it.
90s jerseys. They're the best ever, and I think that they should still wear them to this day. But I guess that would kind of ruin the kind of just the specialty of them.
I like the those 90s black Bulls jerseys
Yeah.
with the cursive font.
And they have the
Yeah.
pinstripes, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
yep,
those were
those
cool.
were great.
Mm-hmm.
It's something about pinstripes. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
If you pull it off the right way, not like what Charlotte's doing right now.
There were a lot of cool ones. I think there were a lot of cool All-Star jerseys. And just the 90s had this whole cartoon vibe about it, too, you know? Like the Vancouver Grizzlies.
Yeah.
They had like real thick borders.
Someone
and,
just said that.
Nice.
I will say what's going to be really cool in the future is the Miami jerseys, the Miami
Oh my
Vice
God.
ones.
Yeah.
Those are going to be
Those
great
need
here
to
in
just
10
be their
years.
uniforms.
Yeah, they should.
I have a feeling they might
They
kinda-
have to.
That'd be awesome. From Mr. B at Mr. Baumforth, what are the repercussions if we bow out of the playoffs early?
As far as trades,
Just trades
and
and
signings.
yeah.
And it's so hard to say. Like, obviously, I think if you go out in the first round, I think it becomes harder to bring in those vets on a minimum. If you get to the Western Conference Finals, it becomes a lot easier. So I think there's a lot potentially.
Yeah, I think it matters who you play and how the series goes too. Like it's not just, if we get swept, then yeah, it's bad. But
It's
if we
important.
take a series to 7 and you lose in a really close game 7,
And
it's against somebody who's good,
right, and someone can be like, I can help that team,
right?
you know, as opposed to I can't do anything for them.
Yeah.
From Dylan at Dylan Sully NZL, what would Adams have to do to get a closer look for next year's All-Star game.
He's creeping up there and getting noticed.
Yeah, media like Jalen, the ESPN guys, they're like harping on him all the time, and it's pretty cool.
So I think that I want to say that I've said before that he'll probably never be an All-Star, but I take that back. I think he's got a chance to get in there one year.
Especially if DeAndre somehow gets traded to the East, he's definitely got a chance.
Yeah, Gobert's not healthy, right? Unhealthy. That makes it sound like he's eating poorly. Yeah. He just got a terrible diet.
I think it's going to take a lot of injuries, to be honest.
It could.
From Zach Prince at Zach Prince 25, with Presti apparently turning down the Blake Griffin for PG trade, does that mean he knows something we don't, or is he just shooting for the stars still with PG?
I go for the latter here.
Yeah. I don't think he knows for sure, because I don't think PG knows for sure yet. I think it does feel like, if you're listening to what he's saying, it does feel like he's leaning towards staying. But
Presti's got to feel good about the position the Thunder are in. Yeah, you still, you don't want to leave a bad taste in his mouth by, finishing below 50 wins and having either a first-round exit or a terrible second-round exit.
Yeah, agreed.
From Shannon Ward at Shannon Z Ward, is there a way we can trade for Marcus Smart?
There's a way, but I don't think it's happening.
I don't think Boston wants him out.
I don't know why they would.
That'd be weird. They're so much better with him on, like, even though his stats aren't necessarily the best really ever, but he's kind of like their glue guy to me. Like,
I think you'd have to give them something that they need back, and I just don't think the Thunder have anything they need.
Yeah.
I think those two teams are kind of made up pretty similarly when you look at the defensive-minded guys, and that's what Marcus Smart is, which I'd love to have him on this team.
That'd be awesome.
From Kari Sanchez at Kari Sanchez, what are the chances OKC does more than one deal before the trade deadline? We obviously need a wing to replace Robertson, but I think getting Steven Adams a backup might be just as important because we don't want him burned out by the playoffs.
I think there's a decent chance.
I do too. I think they're either going to make like more than one trade, or they're going to make a trade and then go to the buyout thing. Like they got to do something about both of those positions if they really want to take this thing.
Which do you think they go after first? What's priority one? I
think the wing.
Yeah.
Like now, I totally, before I thought it was going to be a backup center, but now I'm all in.
Robertson changes things.
Yeah.
I think I think you feel good about just trotting out who you've got when things are going to go small in the playoffs anyway. So you can kind of like, backup center is really not as important.
True.
From Agent Cross at Agent CR0SS. Does Presti get fired if George and Melo leave when reportedly OKC could have had Griffin for a long-term deal?
I don't think so. I don't think there's a chance. I think that you have to he's gotten applauded the fact that he did these moves.
Yeah.
So I just don't think so. I don't think you can. You can't justify firing him because other guys chose not to be here.
Yeah.
From
your damn fault.
Those are some characters that I can't read because they're not in English. But at Nate XVII, which I'm assuming is 17, do you think PG has told Sam he wants to stay, or is him declining the Griffin trade just him hoping we kind of
yeah. Samesies.
Sorry, I included that one. I shouldn't have. Thanks for all the Twitter questions. If we didn't get to yours, sorry. Keep sending them in though, so we appreciate them. We're getting a ton these days, and it's awesome. All right,
it's fun. I get to do stuff.
Yeah, I know. That's why. That's the only reason we do them anymore. We're like, well, he needs something to do. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitter at OKC Thunderheads, and Justin is over at Thunder Tie. Subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, thanks a lot. Also, subscribe on iTunes, rate and review.
Tell all your friends.
Tell all your friends. Catch us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, Overcast, and our very own OKCThunderheads.com, where our trade primer article by Jacob, ThunderMob 405, just went live the other day. So check that out.
Good stuff. Read it.
There's some good trades on there, good potential trades. Go check that out. I will personally catch you guys with a solo pod either tomorrow night or the next night, or maybe both if I'm feeling up for it. And then we will have a Reddit pod on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday.
Super Bowl Sunday.
And then we'll come back with one of our normal pods on Monday. So till then, and as always, Thunder up.